Subscribe to The Honest Critique for current affairs, movie, book, and product reviews. Also, make sure you press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the video series are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily represent those of The Honest Critique and its employees. The following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers. Viewer discretion advised.
So hello everyone and welcome to another session on the series of security, terrorism and intelligence. Today we have among us Mr. S. Dulat, who is a former special director of the Intelligence Bureau and former chief of India's external intelligence wing, the R&AW. After spending more than 32 years in the spy business, Mr. Dulat served in the Prime Minister's office as Atal Vajpayee's special advisor on Kashmir. He is also the author of Kashmir, the Vajpayee Years, and the Spy Chronicles, which he co-authored with the former DG ISI General Asad Durrani. Sir, thank you so much for being here. It's a privilege for hosting you today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So when we talk about the intelligence community of India, we see a lot of institutions in play, such as the IB, the R&AW, the NIA, etc. And the CMG is a mutual business ground where all these institutions come together in times of crisis, if I'm not wrong. So can you break down the intelligence apparatus of India, how these institutions work and collaborate and coordinate with each other to do threat assessment and analysis? Can you just decode the intelligence community and the apparatus of our country?
You see, the basic organization in India is the Intelligence Bureau, which has been there for more than 100 years. And it's the security service, so to say. You could compare it with MI5. The R&AW is a comparatively newer creation. It came into being only in 1968. And that is the external intelligence agency or the intelligence service. And both of them do coordinate. But like everywhere in the world, there are times when, there's competition and so things are not totally collaborative, you could say. But by and large, the agencies work together. And I think our agencies work better than in a lot of other places.
Okay, so I'll ask the next question. So this is regarding your book, which you have written. You have said in your book that the Islamic State and the pan-Islamic Jihad haven't attracted the Kashmiri militants as of now, or since time you have written the book. Now, looking at what Zakir Musa formed, the Al Qaeda cell in Kashmir, and a lot of youngsters going into that formulation of caliphate. Would you like to change your mindset of whether still a lot of these organizations that are going is attracting youth to the Islamic, like the Islamic Jihad, or Pan-Islamic or Islamic State? That's the first question, sir. And the second question, which is, so right now, if you look at the government's policy, it's the all-out policy of muscle flexing policy with Operation All Out, and it's trying to curbing militancy in the valley with this policy. So you have, sir, you have been in the valley and you've seen the valley very closely than most of us have. Do you think will that work?
Let's take it one at a time, okay?
Yeah.
Your first question was about Daesh or the ISIS or the Caliphate movement, whatever you want to call it. Well, I would say that Kashmir is still pretty free of all this. But the mindset is changing gradually because radicalism has grown. And now the youngsters who are joining militancy, I'm talking of the homegrown boys, they talk about Khilafat. They talk about dying for Allah. Previously it was talking about Azadi, independence, sometimes Pakistan. But now a lot of boys talk about Khilafat. So there is a change. But I would still say that by and large, if we look at it today, uh, Kashmir is all right. I mean, it is getting radicalized, and that should be a concern. But I wouldn't say that it's moving totally towards ISIS or Daesh or whatever you call it. You know, black flags do come out. Green flags also come out because of frustration. Now I wouldn't be surprised even if red flags came out. But because there is, increasing frustration in Kashmir
Yeah.
over the situation as it is.
So,
What was
sir,
the second question?
yeah, the second question is how is the current government's muscle flexing policy with the Operation All Out, like the process of elimination of every terrorist act, of every militant out there in the valley? Is it helping to curb the militants in the valley, or is it attracting more youth toward militancy?
See, the point is that Operation All Out or whatever it is, I think the security forces have done a very good job, a remarkable job, and they always do. There's no doubt about that. But the broader, bigger issue is that Kashmir is not a military problem. It's not even a law and order problem. So Operation All Out will work. And, I think this year more than 100 militants have been killed, as well as by, I guess, about 30, 40 security men. So this goes on. But this is not the answer to Kashmir.
Yes. So you have seen the valley very closely, sir. In fact, in some of the most turbulent times, that was the 90s, when we saw the wave of militancy come for the very first time in Kashmir. And you are widely known for your role as the K Group head of the Intelligence Bureau in talking to every stakeholder unconditionally. But the role of IB on the operational front remains very undiscussed. So, can you discuss about the tactics adopted by the IB in order to combat militancy in the valley during those turbulent times?
You see, like was just mentioned, Operation All Out or whatever, there have been times when you have to adopt a slightly harder line, and that has happened, that has been done. But I still maintain, and I come back to the same thing, that we need to talk to people, and we should never stop talking to people. Engagement is the key. Compassion, empathy, that's what Kashmir needs. And also, there is a desperate need for revival of the political process because there's a huge void in Kashmir. There's no one to talk to. And unless you start talking to the political leadership, this void will grow, and then we'll see more black flags, and we'll see more frustration, and then we'll see more homegrown militants. And earlier on, going back to the 90s, we used to say that the lifespan of a militant was about 2.5 years. Now it's 2.5 months, or even 2.5 weeks. Sometimes boys just join and get killed, but they're prepared to get killed. So this is a disturbing. I mean, we should look into that. That it's a disturbing situation.
That's right, sir. I totally agree that there is a political void which still exists in Kashmir, and we need to start a political process. But one thing that really doesn't come in my mind is, sir, during the 90s, during the 1989 period when militancy was taking up front. So you were also engaged too much into the political process, but the militancy couldn't stop. And you also wrote in your books that the intelligence bureau officers were leaving valley, and every civilian officer was trying to leave the valley in some or the other way possible. So how do we see the role of IB here, particularly in combating terrorism, while the political process and the talkings are also going hand in hand?
So I was talking about that winter of 89-90. It was a terrible winter. And you would also remember that the Union Home Minister's daughter was kidnapped during that period. So it was bad, and people started leaving. And as I said in my book, all central government employees left. There was a time that even IB officers came out and said, "We can't stay here anymore." And I said, "There's no option for us. We have to stay here. We have to stick it out." So, as I said, there are different times. And at that point of time, we needed the army. Kashmir needed the army, not only the security forces, but the Kashmiris needed the army. So, but that is past. And now we've heard, former army chiefs, generals saying that it is high time that the army was gradually eased out of Kashmir. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but over a period of time, it needs to happen. You know, the Indian army should not be considered an occupation force in Kashmir. And so, when Umar Abdullah said in 2008-9 that AFSPA should be gradually reduced, unfortunately, it didn't happen then, and it can't happen now because the situation is much worse today. But as I said, I keep saying this, and I'm being repetitive here. But the answer is not military. We have to talk, and no matter how much force you use, this problem is not going to go away unless we engage with the people. If you've read my book, it ends with this plea that we need to talk, and never stop talking. And even going back to 1990, let me tell you, when we first started talking to the Kashmiri unconditionally, and they also talked unconditionally. It was a difficult time and a difficult thing to get Kashmiris to talk, but they did start talking. And it's a long story. If you look at it, it's been 30 years of talking. But now we've stopped talking. I don't say the agencies never stopped talking. But the perception is that government of India is not engaging with Kashmir, and that's not a good perception. It's not a healthy perception. That's the point I'm trying to make.
So, sir, I have a small follow-up to that question. So,
Yeah.
there's a anger which among the Pandit community as well. What happened with the 90s of the Exodus? So, with the Exodus and follow-up with the Gokandal massacre that happened in the valley, I'm asking in a more introspective way rather than in an argumentative way. Was that not a, if not a failure of the intelligence unit to detect such kind of an exodus or a massacre?
Well, whenever people get killed or whenever things like that happen, yeah, you can call it a failure of the intelligence agency. Maybe I was there, maybe it was my failure as well. But there have been failures. After all, 9/11 would not have happened if there was no intelligence failure. 26/11 would not have happened if there was no intelligence failure. So there are times, difficult times, when things do go wrong. There is no such thing as, like we say, there's no foolproof security. There's no foolproof intelligence also nowhere in the world. The Americans haven't been able to develop it. The Brits haven't been able to develop it. The Russians haven't. I don't think the Chinese either.
So, sir, in your book, the Kashmir, the Vajpayee Years, you have made a sensational claim that the government was funding the Hurriyat. And in your subsequent book, the Spy Chronicles, you have mentioned that Hurriyat plays as a Pakistan's team player in Kashmir. Now, you say we have to keep them engaged, the government of India to keep them engaged. So, as a ordinary citizen of the country, if I analyze both the situation, where exactly do you see the Hurriyat's role, and can they be a trusted partner for the peace mission as they're engaging with both India and Pakistan at the same time? And we have often been seen that when the Hurriyat wants to talk, New Delhi doesn't talk, and when New Delhi wants to talk, the Hurriyat doesn't. So how can we engage both these sections?
Well, it's for Delhi to engage, and it's for Srinagar as well to engage. I told a news agency in Srinagar who was talking about engagement, and he says, "Don't you think Delhi should make the first move?" I said, "No. Why Delhi always? Why not Srinagar?" So I agree with you there that but it's not. It has to go beyond trust. Trust will come when you start talking. When we first started talking to the separatist leaders in 1990, and they said, "What do we talk about?" I said, "Okay, let's talk about talking." And that's how trust develops once you start talking. But if you don't talk, How can you claim trust? What is trust based on? Trust can't be based on force, can't be based on extortion. And coming back to the thing about funding the Hurriyat, this whole thing has been blown out of proportion. What I did say in the book was that, like everybody else, some Kashmiris did receive money, and this happens all over the world. It's not unique to us.
So you have also had fair share of experience in talking with the Hurriyat, or be it the Mirwais, or some of the most controversial stakeholders, I would rather say, like Shabir Shah and even Hashim Qureshi, people like Hashim Qureshi as well. So nowadays, how do you see a new leadership emerging in Kashmir on the separatist front, or is it the same old school way you have to go to?
I don't know of any new leadership just now. The only new thing we are hearing now is the new boys who are joining militancy. There's nothing on the political front coming up just now. But these things evolve, it could happen. You could have a new leadership. But the starting point will be the old leadership that we've known, and we need to go back. But, you were talking about the Hurriyat and the separatist thing. We are not even talking to the mainstream. What's the problem there? After all, Omar Abdullah has been a chief minister. Mehbooba has been a chief minister. Dr. Farooq has been chief minister 3 times. What's the problem in talking to these people? And to the others as well who are in the mainstream now.
All right, sir. So I'll go to the next question. And you have widely advocated the idea of a composite dialogue between India and Pakistan. And since we are discussing Kashmir, then Pakistan, of course, has to come.
No,
And
let me correct you here that this whole idea of a composite dialogue comes from, the diplomats, and I'm not a diplomat. So let me say that engagement with Pakistan also is necessary. And I think Pakistan needs to understand that. So, again, I would say, like I've said of Kashmir, I think maybe Pakistan needs to take the first step forward.
okay. Yes, that's indeed true, sir. So I'll just rephrase it. As you said, the definition of composite dialogue has been different in terms of intelligence officers and diplomats. So, but you have always advocated the idea of engagement with the neighbor, and we have seen many developments under it. We have also seen the joint anti-terrorism mechanism that emerged in 2006. We also saw Musharraf's Agra summit. We have also seen subsequent SARC summits as well, and Vajpayee ji's bus yatra, Modi ji's sudden appearance in Lahore, etc., etc. While Kashmir being the bone of contention between the two states, how do you see a process of composite dialogue or an engagement taking place, given that Pakistan has given us scars of lifetime with 2611, Pathankot, Uri, etc.?
Yeah, that's why I say it won't happen at the composite level. The composite level is at the foreign secretary's level. And that's the easiest way to start. But nothing happens there beyond the point. I think if both sides are serious, it has to be at the level of, there has to be a summit, Indo-Pak summit somewhere. And how that will happen is not easy. So somebody has to imagine it or conjure it. And I think Pakistan needs to think on those lines. I think there is a pending invitation to the Prime Minister of Pakistan to come here for the SCO meeting in October, if it is held. And I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan must come if that meeting is held. That would be a good starting point.
Okay. Okay, that's very insightful. So, but we know that the Pakistan army is the main authority which calls the shots in Pakistan, as we have always seen. So, how do you see the role of political leadership emerging here as a peace conveyor? Also, sir, you said about a summit, that a summit should take place, an Indo-Pak summit. But some experts, some diplomats, some former intelligence officers also suggest that instead of a summit, we should have back channel conversation. We should not make loud noises about that we are talking, but we should have a certain subtle way of communication that should go on. So how do you see these two paradigms of the whole engagement?
Yeah, there's no contradiction there. I'm sure that some kind of engagement at whatever level always goes on. There must be engagement. It's very difficult to believe that we are not talking to Pakistan or Pakistan is not talking to us. And I'm totally with you that there needs to be a back channel. Unless you have a back channel or somebody talking at the back, you won't be able to come to the front. When I say that the prime ministers need to meet, because that will really shake up things and that will carry things forward. But you're right, we need a back channel, and I'm sure there must be a back channel.
Sir, how do you see this back channel going to work in future? What are the main stakeholders that should be involved in the back channel? Should it be the INB? Should it be the IB? Should it be the R&AW? Or should it be the Indian Army talking to the counterpart? How do you see the back channel process taking place here, sir? What are the main components of the back channel conversation?
Well, you posed an interesting question. Should it be the army? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. The two army chiefs talking to each other is not a bad idea, but it's unlikely to happen. So I would suggest that you're right that the army does basically, it is the last word in Pakistan. But from what one hears, what is positive is that General Bajwa and Prime Minister Imran Khan seem to be on the same kind of page. So that's a positive thing, and it gives us an opportunity to move forward.
So are you saying, sir, they are making welcoming noises, and we should accept that?
Well, they're not welcoming noises, but from whatever one hears, General Bajwa is not opposed to an Indo-Pak dialogue or an engagement. I'm told he favors it. I am not in any business now. It's been a long, long time since I left everything. But this is what one hears. Maybe I'm wrong.
Then what is bothering us? Why aren't we also making the right signals?
What is bothering us is what you mentioned earlier. That Mumbai happened, and then Uri happened, and the Pathankot happened. These things do happen, and they will keep happening. But the question is, once you start engaging, it gives confidence. And then my humble view is that engagement should never stop. In the worst days of the Cold War, the KGB and the CIA never stopped talking.
Yes.
Neither did Kennedy and Khrushchev. And as somebody said, that may have saved the world from a third world war. So, when we talk of Pakistan, a lot of people are very hawkish on both sides. But the same people also acknowledge that war is not really an option, not a serious option. So then what is the option? If war is not an option, if the hard line is not an option, then obviously the alternative is talking, engagement.
Sir, there's this policy of India in which India will only have a conversation with Pakistan if they prosecute or if they hand over Hafiz Saeed to India. And this battle for the legal process as well as the 2611 after post the 2611 has been going on for a long time. Then we see a prime minister trying to have like if I can say that he's trying to make a peace process by visiting Nawaz Sharif there, or probably, as you mentioned in the book as well, probably inviting him for the oath taking. Does this dilute our issue when we want to make a peace, but we make a very the commitment to the peace is a very conditional that only when you hand over Hafiz Saeed you will have a talk. Does this conditional peace work?
How can you have conditional talks? We've talked for a long time that terror and talks can't go together. But the fact is that with Pakistan, terror and talks have gone together. After all, Prime Minister Vajpayee did take that bus to Lahore, and he was a very brave man to do so. I don't think his party approved of it, but he still did it. And it made things move forward. And then Kargil happened. And that didn't deter Vajpayee from his convictions. He still carried on. And then the attack on Parliament happened. And despite that, he went to Srinagar in April 2003. He said, I have tried to make peace with Pakistan, but I've been let down twice. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to give it a third try. And he did go to Islamabad after that for the SAARC summit in January 2004. So it depends how you look at these things, how you think, you want to do. Vajpayee was a man of conviction that this permanent confrontation with Pakistan has to end, and we need to move forward in Kashmir. Now, obviously, the thinking is slightly different. After all, it does change from time to time, which is all right. And we can still make adjustments and still move forward.
So, sir, are you hinting in some way that Mr. Modi should have carried on with the peace talk in spite of the attacks on Uri or Pulwama? Like, are you hinting that he should have not stopped the peace process altogether?
Let me put it like this, and I've said that in my book, and I've said it many times, that everybody was hoping that Prime Minister Modi would carry forward what Prime Minister Vajpayee was doing. But they're different personalities, so things change, This, as some people say, is the most powerful Prime Minister. So he's going to do it his way. But whatever way you do it, let's do it.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the other topic. So you have supported the Musharraf Point for formula. It was peace on the line of control, with going and coming and open borders, and more interaction between the two Kashmirs, trade and armies pulled back. So a very obvious question: don't you think opening borders will make sure more militants walking in and trading of arms and ammunition across the border? That's point one. And the second point is, in a larger context, can India make welcoming noise with a window of opportunity to solve the larger problem with Pakistan using the point formula?
I think this 4-point formula, although it's not a bad formula, obviously neither side was going to accept all 4 points. The big thing there was that Pakistan was willing, or Musharraf was willing, let me put it like that more correctly, was willing for a settlement on the line of control. And I think that was not a bad settlement. But now the 4-point formula is dead. And Musharraf has also been PNG'd in Pakistan. So let's forget about that. But something on those lines, whatever happens with that will happen once we start talking what give and take there will be. But obviously, Kashmir will still remain the key issue. There's no escaping that.
So, but the larger question is, don't you think, because a lot of people like this arms trading or the militants crossing the border happens one way, not the other way around, that India sends. So, don't you think this will be a bit problematic for militants crossing the border?
Well, let's put it like this, that Pakistan says we are also sending people across, or we are also creating trouble in certain areas. And so we don't know about that. If there was a relaxation on the border, more militants would come in. Militants in any case come in. It depends on the Pakistani intention, what we call niyat. If Pakistan wants to stop it, it will stop. If Pakistan doesn't want to stop it and they encourage it, then more people come in. Incidentally, what is happening in Kashmir today, and I gave you a figure of about 100, that's what I read somewhere, that most of these boys who have died recently or who have taken to arms recently are homegrown boys. And that should cause us concern. There was also the story of about 50 foreign militants having come in, but we haven't found too much trace of them, except for a couple of encounters. There was that bad one in North Kashmir where we lost up to senior army officers. Other than that, it's mostly been our own boys. So either way, both are concerns. And we need to tell Pakistan that this won't do, and you need to stop this. But it needs engagement. If we talk, after all, when we started talking to Musharraf seriously, everybody knows that militancy did go down, and Pakistan did put brakes on boys coming in. So these things happened. There was the ceasefire of 2003 during Prime Minister Vajpayee's time, and that held for quite a while.
So once General Musharraf Sahab was in India, and he said that the only way the dispute can be solved is if we have a niyat, a good niyat, acha
Yeah,
niyat.
that's what I mentioned, niyat.
Exactly. So, throwing some more light on what his comments were about having a proper dialogue between India and Pakistan to resolve the issue. How do you think the mood of the Pakistan army or the authorities, whichever the concerned authorities are today and right now as we talk? What is the current mood? Can they, like, how can they, what is your personal assessment on what is going on Kashmir or in Pakistan these days?
So Kashmir, we've already talked about in the sense, that what's going on in Kashmir
Yeah.
is a lot of things are under control and a lot of things which needs to happen are not happening. But as far as Pakistan goes, I don't know what's happening in Pakistan, but from what one understands, what one hears, that Pakistan is keen to move forward with India. Now, what the terms of moving forward are, it's very difficult for me to say. That's for Government of India to figure out. And then for Government of India to figure out whether we want to talk or we don't want to talk. And also the Government of Pakistan. It's a two-way thing, it doesn't happen one way. It's unlikely that Prime Minister Modi will take a bus to Lahore now. He did drop in once for Mia Saab's granddaughter's wedding or whatever, reception, whatever it was. But it's not going to happen in a hurry now. But, once things open up, once things even out and we begin to understand each other, after all, Lahore to Delhi is only a 30-minute or a 40-minute flight. So Imran Khan can, during the good season in winter, come to Hyderabad house, have makki ki roti and saag and go back after lunch. Have a chat with Modi ji and go back. But that requires imagination. I don't think it's going to happen 2020 or 21.
Okay, sir. So this question is by a Kashmiri student. His name is Mr. Zuhaib Shafi. So Zuhaib Shafi asks from a Kashmiri perspective of August 5, 2019 has been from a Kashmiri perspective. August 5, 2019 has been epitome of betrayals done in the name of development, but sliding on its sleeves were the appalling domicile laws, which strikes the question: was it really for the economic development as the government claims? How do you see the progression of these laws in the land, where they have to go hand in hand with laws like OFSPA and PSA?
Well, this domicile issue is going to trouble the Kashmiris. But we have to wait and see. As I said, only when you start talking, can these matters be resolved. Now, 370, as far as, if you're asking me about 370, whatever stir it might have created in Kashmir is done and dusted now. 370 is not going to come back. And I think the Kashmiri understands that. He may still protest about it. And the matter is sub judice, it's in court. But practically speaking, I don't see 370 coming back. Whether it should have been abrogated or removed or whatever, it's a moot point. But thing is, it's been done. Now the issue which will come up in due course when the political process revives, will be the question of statehood.
So all these leaders and separatists, they keep talking about autonomy. But the Article 370 still gave them some sort of hope. There was a lot of there might not be very much of concrete value to it, but I'm sure there was a lot of symbolism in which it had to do with a lot of things, with the Kashmiri sentiment as such. But the national sentiments in India is pretty different in that point of view. So have we actually betrayed Kashmir in that manner? And how do they, and you said that they don't want, they know that Kashmir, that Article 370 and 35A is not coming back. So is there a atmosphere of betrayal?
Yeah, there was a feeling then of betrayal. The question, like you said rightly, the take on 370 is very different in the country than it is in Kashmir. And, that is really what the Kashmiri felt hurt about. Because they would say that, we've had problems with Delhi ever since 47 or whatever it is. But we've never had problems with the people of India. Now it seems the people have turned against us. Now that's the Kashmiri way of looking at it. But as I say, unless we were talking so much just now about talking to Pakistan, unless we start talking to the Kashmiris, I don't think anything is going to move. And if I might add something here, I'm not saying that Delhi is not talking. Surely Delhi would be talking. But I think what we need is a more open, transparent way of talking, of engagement. So that, my point is, if you talk quietly to a handful of national conference leaders or PDP leaders who visit Delhi, it doesn't reach Srinagar the way it should. And again, there is the issue of, our own leaders betraying us and things. So unless, the Kashmiri understands or feels that Delhi is actually engaging with the leadership and the political process will revive, it doesn't give the Kashmiri any hope. And there's a sense of hopelessness there. You talked about betrayal. There is more a sense of hopelessness. And that is why these boys say, we will die for Allah now.
So, sir, if I could frame the situation with New Delhi and Kashmir, like two person in a relationship, and one of the Delhi has been constantly uh, getting down and like breaking the trust of Kashmir most of the time, and with Article 370 bringing the entire model on trust of the people of Kashmir down. Do you think Kashmiris will be ready for a conversation or like a talking point at this point of the time, as we speak, after repeated like attempts by the Delhi to betray their trust?
Let me put it to you like this. The Kashmiris are always prepared, always ready to talk. Firstly, we need to remember Kashmiris are not really warriors, but we've gradually turned some of them into warriors. And the Kashmiri knows, when I say the Kashmiri, I'm talking of the broad spectrum. They know, they understand the mess that they're in. And what they seek most of all is peace and to get on with their lives. So if Delhi starts talking, it provides hope, and then things can move forward. I'm being repetitive, but the point is we need to talk. Why is Mehbooba being held in custody for so long? This is a question being raised in Kashmir. So
Yeah. Okay, sir. We see the negative aspects of the revocation of Article 370 and 35A, and there is a lot of distrust among the Kashmiri community as well. So, what are the positive possible effects of the Article 370 revocation that we see from a national security point of view or bridging the gap point of view?
I don't see too much positive in it, but it's been done. It's finished. It's over now. It was something which the BJP was committed to, and it was part of their election manifesto. So it had to be done, and it's been done. So the Kashmiri will understand that, and he'll, over a period of time, learn to live with it. But what now? Where are we headed now after that? That's the question. As far as 35A goes, I think it will trouble Jammu more than the Kashmiris. Time will tell. But I don't think people in Jammu are particularly happy with the revocation of 35A.
Sir, since you have been advocating of having a conversation with Kashmiris and the only message you're giving is to talk. So, sir, with so many varied subjects which are involved in the conflict, with so many people with their vested interest, vested ideology involved in the Kashmir conflict, who is the right person we should go and talk to?
Everybody. Every Kashmiri who is willing to talk, we should talk to. And the mainstream is keen to talk, whether it is the National Conference, whether it's the PDP, whether it's the People's Conference, Congress, of course. And they're all prepared to talk. I don't think there's anybody. And now there's a new party which has been created, and they're also talking to Delhi, the Apni party. Everybody is prepared to talk. I don't think there's anybody in the mainstream not prepared to talk. But once we start talking, since you brought up the separatists repeatedly, yeah, I think we need to talk to the separatists as well. And I would say start with the Mirwais. He is the key to it all. He's the most important separatist leader.
Since the revocation of Article 370 have betrayed trust of ordinary Kashmiris, and in this process, a lot of people have lost faith in the political process in the valley. But do you think only talking to the leaders will solve the problem? Do the leaders have the trust of the people out there?
That's a good question, because a lot of them don't have the trust. But once Delhi starts talking, then it gives the Kashmiri trust, it gives them hope. Like I said, whether you call it trust, whether you call it hope, it's something that he feels, okay, something is happening. Right now, he feels nothing is happening. To put it crudely, the Kashmiris are up shit creek,
Okay, sir. So you said we need to talk and we need to keep talking. We need to engage with everyone unconditionally. So, and we should start with Mirwais.
What condition? I beg your pardon. What condition can you lay down to a former chief minister?
Exactly. There shouldn't be any condition.
What condition can you lay down to a former union minister? Yeah. Farooq Abdullah, with a little bit of luck, should have been president of India. What conditions are you going to lay down to him?
I was coming exactly there only. So, but don't you think we will have to face a lot of embarrassment, a lot of embarrassment when we start talking, because we have continuously made them to suffer under different kind of laws, stuffed them into house arrests, and continuously kind of embarrassed ourselves in front of the community. So, do you think we will not be embarrassed when we start talking to them, and we will not have to face any kind of problems when we start talking to them? And will they be equally ready and eager to talk with us?
I told you the Kashmiri is always ready to talk. I don't know how eager he is, but he's ready to talk, always ready to talk. And like I said earlier, our generals, including the former Army Chief General Malik, has said, and some other chiefs as well, that the army largely, basically, has done its job in Kashmir. Now it's up to the politicians. So, if you engage with the politicians, if you talk to the politicians, you will know which or how many of them are willing to come forward and move on.
And recently, sir, the Indian government also appointed, I'm not sure when the exact timeline of the event happened, but Dineshwar Sharma, the ex-director of the Intelligence Bureau, he was appointed as the interlocutor for the peace process. How do you see the role of such an individual who might not be from very much from the same background as yours when we talk about Kashmir? And you have also said that when you want to talk about Kashmir, have Kashmiris at the highest level to talk to, have Kashmiris in the government, Even if you're not having Kashmiris in the government, have at least people from the Kashmiri cadre to talk to. So how do you see the role of Dineshwar Sharma here coming in the play?
Well, I thought Dineshwar was an outstanding, excellent choice. He was the best man available at that point of time. Do the job. But somewhere he got bogged down. Now, whether he got bogged down himself or whether Delhi bogged him down, I wouldn't know. But it was unfortunate because he was a good man. And I know him personally. We've been colleagues. And he served in Kashmir. He was compassionate, empathetic. He knew the cast of characters. He knew who to meet or who to give priority to. But it didn't happen that way, unfortunately. I think Dineshwar was wasted, like a lot of other people have been wasted. I think Dr. Farooq Abdullah has been wasted. So that's how it goes in Kashmir.
And you have also said that you have personally been the witness while Dr. Farooq Abdullah was given the hope of becoming the Vice President of India. You have personally been the witness to that conversation.
It was more than hope. It was an assurance given. Yeah.
Assurance, exactly. It was a promising statement given by Delhi to Dr. Farooq Abdullah. So there is a lot of mistrust where we see here. And from your book, I also learned that Farooq Abdullah sir has been very, very angry with New Delhi. What is the way we can calm Dr. Farooq Abdullah? We can convince him that yes, we are back. We will talk to you. Can we develop the trust again? Can we bridge that gap again with Dr. Farooq Abdullah?
I think we can. Sure, we can. Why not? He's a big man with a big heart, and he understands things. He understands. He is the ultimate politician. You take it from me, and he understands politics. He understands compulsions. He also understands what needs to be done in Kashmir. And he also understands Delhi. Not only Delhi, he understands Pakistan. And I think he understands international politics. But the question is, Delhi needs to engage.
So, in the coming days, what I have learned from the chemistry of you and Dr. Farooq Abdullah, do we see your role in the coming days as well?
No, I don't see any role for myself. Nor am I angling for a role. If I've given that impression, forgive me, I'm not.
But
like 370, I am done and dusted. You know?
But I don't think any individual in the government has been so close and yet has come this far with Dr. Farooq Abdullah as you have. So if you are asked, will you do?
Will I do what?
Will you talk to your friend, with your old friend, Dr. Abdullah?
I talk to him every week, even now. You know, I talk to him on the phone to inquire about his health.
But in an official manner, if the government requests you to intervene.
No, I mean, I'd be quite happy to talk to him. But I don't think I have a role left now. I'm being honest, being candid.
So, but the security agency have something else planned. They allowed you to go and meet Dr. Farooq Abdullah.
Yeah, they did.
So,
and I was very happy to go.
But do you think the security agencies, the IB or the Prime Minister's office, in fact, I don't think Mr. Ajit Doval's office as well knows for a matter of fact that you are the only person who can bridge the divided gap right now, which is in Kashmir, and they are looking to go through a peace process through you.
No, now you're flattering me hugely. I don't think it's like that. I know where I stand, and I suffer from no illusions. I've seen a lot of the world. I've seen a lot of India. I've seen a lot of Kashmir. And but I always wish the Kashmiris well. It's been a long engagement, you know. Started in 87, 88. So you can imagine it's been a long time. And talking of Dr. Farooq, let me say, because I met him as soon as I went to Kashmir. He was then Chief Minister. It's been a privilege to know him. And it's not easy to get to know him because he doesn't let you know him easily. You know, they're not taken for granted. He's a big man. He has a big heart. But you have to be careful in dealing with it.
So, since Mr. Farooq Abdullah is no longer in the stake of the Kashmir legislative assembly, he is right now a member of the parliament. Mr. Omar Abdullah is a better stake of being the chief minister, as you have pointed out as well in one of the interviews. So, do you think the new generation leader of Mr. Omar Abdullah, who's growing up in the environment where he has seen his father repeatedly being betrayed by New Delhi, will trust Delhi?
No, I think Omar is the leader for the future. I mean, if you were to ask me who might be the next chief minister of Kashmir, I would always say Omar Abdullah, because the National Conference is the one party which has a statewide spread. So it will be Omar. And, I don't think Dr. Saab is interested in being chief minister again. His role, if you've read Shakespeare and if you've read The Tempest, is like Prospero, you know. So he's a mentor now. And but I think he has a role at the national level. I think he's a big player and he has a role at the national level. At the state level, he's there to guide his party, he's there to guide his son, and he's there to guide Kashmir and Kashmiris.
So, but the larger question which I wanted to ask you is, do you think Mr. Omar Abdullah will be trusting the New Delhi government, provided the records of his father being repeatedly betrayed by New Delhi?
No. Omar also is a practical man. Omar has great qualities, head and heart. He's very straight. And I think his being in the opposition, he would have learned a lot more. I think he's beginning to understand politics. And I think the key question here, slightly mischievous, but can Omar and Mehbooba tie up? Well, the Kashmiris have found it very difficult to get together. That's been one of their problems. And if I might add a last word, I think we should stop exploiting that weakness of the Kashmiris. It does Delhi no good.
So, since you have also mentioned one of the small incident, which in one of the interviews that Mr. Omar Abdullah was there when the BJP approached him to form the government. Mr. Farooq Abdullah, in fact, but he was going through a surgery and he asked to go and meet Omar, and Omar that time declined the offer. Do you think there can be another scenario where Omar might decline the offer for a process like that?
It all depends, how it plays out. JFK, as you're probably aware, is due a delimitation of constituencies. And what is anticipated is that the constituencies in Jammu will increase. So, but still, the arithmetic of JFK is such that in the foreseeable future, no single party can form a government in JFK. So whether it is the National Conference and the PDP, whether it is the National Conference and the BJP, whether it is the National Conference or the Congress, or Mehbooba and the Congress or the PDP or this thing, only an election will tell. Because it's a very dicey kind of arithmetic.
I'm glad you brought out the point of opposition here when the Kashmir Assembly used to play an important role. So I want to ask about one thing is that there were two very great leaders from the Indian National Congress Party. One was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi and one was Mr. Rajesh Pilot ji. And you have had a certain way you have interacted with them, you have been close with them in some or the other way. And you also wrote in your book that you had a lot of expectations from their children to engage with the Kashmiri community, but their performance in engaging with the Kashmiri community has not been very satisfying, according to your assessment. So how do you see the role of the Indian opposition here, trying to talk to the Kashmiri community and trying to address the grievances of the Kashmiri community here? Because you have always said that Rajesh Pilot and Mr. Rajiv Gandhi were great friends of the Kashmiri people, but we don't see the same from their children. So, yeah, little bit on that, sir.
Yeah, the thing is that, firstly, let me clarify. I didn't know Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. I only met him once. But yes, uh, Mr. Rajesh Pilot was my home minister, and I had a good equation with him. He was a wonderful human being, and I think might have made a very good prime minister as well, given an opportunity. But, the thing is, and he again had a lot of compassion and empathy for Kashmir and Kashmiris, and that's why he had this great relationship with the Kashmiris. Yeah, it's a bit sad. When the UPA government came to power in 2004, one of its greatest assets was the Young Brigade, because it had some of the best in politics or in parliament at that point of time. And the expectation, at least my expectation, was that they would not forget to engage with Kashmir. And two people in particular who have a connect with Kashmir otherwise, uh, Rahul Gandhi and Sachin Pilot, have not done what they should have done, I think. Rahul has been to Kashmir a couple of times. He has addressed a public rally with Umar Abdullah. I don't recall Sachin going there at all. Maybe the party didn't think it right. But I think this is a good point that you brought out, that the Congress doesn't talk often enough about Kashmir. There's a silence here. I think Mr. Chidambaram made an amazing speech in Parliament. But after that, that was at the time of abrogation of 370. After that, there hasn't been too much from the Congress on Kashmir. There is a strange silence. And that happens with Pakistan as well. I'm sure the Congress has a viewpoint on Pakistan as well, but we don't hear it.
I think because they're because
what we are
yeah.
hearing from the Congress is they want to know about what's going on in Ladakh and what the Chinese are up to. But we don't hear the Congress viewpoint on Pakistan. After all, as the main opposition party, it must have a viewpoint, and they should air their viewpoint. It might help the party in power.
Since you mentioned that one of the way to solve the crisis in Kashmir right now is through political process, and right now, why isn't New Delhi trying that route? That's one, and disenfranchising common people and detaining political leaders. Do you think that is setting a very bad example on that route of solving the issue through political process?
You see, why they're not taking the route that I'm advocating is because they know much more than I know, and they are better informed and they're better positioned. Who am I to? This is just a view. Mine is just a viewpoint. I can't say that the government should do this or the government should not do that. So I'm sure what the government is doing is right. But the second thing is that, what has happened to the Kashmiri leadership, who've been locked in or locked down for 8, 9, 10 months now. Incidentally, the Kashmiri response to that is that we've always been locked down. That's the way Delhi has always treated us. So I think I would plead for Mehbooba's release now. I think she should be released. And so should the others who are under house arrest, like Saab, like my friend Sajjad Lone. Why not let them free? Let them go out, meet people. That's how the political process will revive. Meeting, mixing, talking, engagement. Never stop talking. Like I'm doing. Never stop talking.
So you have spent a lot of time in the valley, and you know that what the government right now is doing, the muscle flexing policy is not working. The way forward is the political process which you are advocating.
Yeah, the way forward, I tell you, put it in a nutshell, in a few words, the way forward is the political process and compassion, understanding, empathy. That's the way forward. Operation All Out, very good. Now let's go. Operation Engagement.
So yeah. So Ratnadeep in the previous section spoke about Mr. Ajit Doval and how he has played an important role in the whole process. So I think you are also you have also had a satisfying time and experience with Mr. Ajit Doval. And in IC 814 case also we saw an extremely amazing team, the part of the crisis management group that went to Kandahar, Mr. Ajit Doval, Mr. Anand Arni from the R&AW, and different kind of people. So Ajit Doval has this image in India that he's a great spy master, a legendary spy master, as we might say, and but still there has been certain discomfort in Kashmir about the political process and things like that, and terror activities being on the rise, and exponential rise in the militancy. And we also see every third day there is one militant that is joining the ultra ship and everything. So how do you see the role of Ajit Doval, considering that he's the national security advisor now being promoted to the cabinet level? So, you know, how do you see the role of Ajit Doval in the whole theater?
Now, I've said this many, many times, and this will only add to the Doval legend, that he's been a friend, a colleague, we worked together, and now he's a very big player. Like you said, cabinet rank. So, whatever is happening in Kashmir, I would say he is the main player there. And there's no doubt about his capability. He's a first-class operator, one of the best we have. And that's it. The Pakistanis, the Pakistanis are not particularly fond of him because of his hard line. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I've said this repeatedly to the Pakistanis, that if you want to start a dialogue, invite Ajit to Lahore. But the Pakistanis haven't been able to do that. So that's how difficult dialogue becomes.
Well, I fairly agree to what you said. There is no, there is no disagreement with what you said. It stays undisputed to the point. So yeah. So talking about a different point of view, sir. Prominent Pakistani journalist Ahmad Rashid once said, "If Kashmir was resolved, Afghanistan would be a cakewalk." As far as the Afghan theater goes, sir, what are selfish self-interests both India and Pakistan are looking here, and what have we done so far to gain a strategic depth in Afghanistan, according to your experience as the R&AW chief?
You see, like the world all over, different theaters keep changing at different times, And I am not an Afghan expert, unlike my friend Anand Adni, who knows it like the back of his hand. But what I will say is that I think we've goofed in not engaging with the Taliban for so many years. And this now, we have reached a stage, I think it's really ironic, that the Americans are telling us to talk to the Taliban. I mean, what can be more ironical than that? Because our policy in Kashmir, I beg your pardon, in Afghanistan, has been dovetailed to the Americans. Now the Americans are engaging because they want to get the hell out of there. And Trump is determined to do that before his re-election. So where are we left? Which depth are we going to gain there?
Exactly. That's what I want to know from your expertise.
It's time, I'm sure we were talking about back channels earlier. I'm sure we must be having back channels with the Taliban. But I think it's high time we had a front channel now. And we engage squarely with the Taliban. Because again, we will be losing out to Pakistan in Afghanistan. Pakistan is a big player there. So when Ahmed Rashid said what he said, there is logic there. Because, when the Pakistanis talk about Kashmir, I always tell them, what do you know about Kashmir? What do you know about the Kashmiris? We deal with them every day. You have no idea about Kashmir. Likewise, in Afghanistan, Pakistan does score over us because they are right there next door. And they have big players in the Taliban. You know that. The Haqqanis and the this and that. And so that is reality which we need to acknowledge.
I think our viewers would agree with that on that, sir, that there is a heavy influx of exchange taking place from Pakistan into Afghanistan or from Afghanistan into Pakistan from their eastern front, which keeps going on like a vicious cycle. So what you indicated here that Pakistan does have an upper hand in Afghanistan, and once the Americans are gone, I think in the next 7 to 8 months, when the process of the withdrawal is completed, where does India finds itself in Afghanistan? That's one question that lot we don't have a clarity yet. And we have also seen how Zalmay Khalilzad, the American special representative for the peace process, has been talking to the external affairs minister of India and has also met on certain occasions. So how do you see these developments taking shape in Afghanistan once the American withdrawal is totally completed?
You see, it's like this. Again, it's somewhat similar to Kashmir and Kashmiris. That, like I said, that we need to engage with the Kashmiris, and the Kashmiris will always be willing to engage. I'm sure, I don't know the Taliban, but I'm pretty sure the Taliban would be keen to engage with us, would be keen to have a relationship with us. And I think we need to have a relationship with them now that everybody else is leaving. There was a time, you talked about my time when I was in the R&AW, that was a different time. There was a different setting in Afghanistan. There was the Northern Alliance. And, we were supporting the Northern Alliance along with Russia and Iran and whatever it is. Now, Iran and Russia have changed sides. So which side are we left with? And there is no Northern Alliance as such. The Taliban is a reality that we need to acknowledge. And I'm quite sure the Taliban is keen, equally. They would like a relationship. They understand the importance of India. I think they may be easier to deal with than Nepal.
So, sir, since internet is a basic right, as the Supreme Court have said, and we have seen over the years, while there's an operation going on in Kashmir, communication channel and internet has been blocked and snuffed for days. And it's been nearly 10 months now that high-speed internet connection have not been restored. And it's a very problematic for education institutions, since we sitting in the rest of the India enjoying the benefits of 4G connection. We can have a conversation right now with you, sir. We can attend classes, but the ordinary Kashmiris cannot afford classes because of having a slow speed internet. The second is the healthcare system is very affected by that. And what is your view, and why is the government trying other methods to solve the radicalization problem without affecting the communication channel, like targeting the specific posts which affect, which is radicalized in nature, and just taking that down?
No, I think all this internet and things need to be restored. Two views on that. But the question is, it's a question of timing. I'm sure it will be done. Delhi understands that. And it will happen. It's not as if it's going to be blocked forever, because the ultimate fear always, as you say, you relate everything to security, whether it is Chinese goods or internet in Kashmir or whatever. And there are other ways of restricting people and restricting things and countering things than only blocking. Because in any case, the other side of it, the flip side of it, is that the cyber thing has gone out of the roof, That's another warfare which is taking place now.
So for the last questions, I think this would be the best way to end this conversation on the last question front. So over years, you have developed a very friendly relationship with your counterpart, the Director General of ISI, General Asad Durrani, and which is one of its kind in the spy business. How do you see a relationship as such during the track to dialogues, given that from the enemy side, we have seen the traces of Pathankot 2611, Uri, Pulwama, etc., being tracked down to ISI. So how does this relationship exactly works on a human basis, on a human factor? You know that there has been involvement of ISI, and then you again are engaging yourself in track two dialogues with them and talking to them, developing friendships with them. So how do you see this as a human factor? How do you receive the criticism over that? How do you see it?
The human factor is the key. It's the key in intelligence also. No matter how tech savvy we get, without human, it's very difficult to move forward. Coming to the book and to General Asad Durrani, poor man, he got into trouble there, in Pakistan. Here I faced a lot of criticism, but my pension hasn't yet been cut off. But he's not allowed to go out and his pension has been stopped. So it's been pretty rough for him, But he's a tough guy. He's fighting it and he's determined to fight it. So you'll hear more of it, possibly in the future.
How do you see the future of Kashmir in the next coming years, maybe 10 years or 15 years from now, with Pakistan being the key player, the most prominent player? That would be the concluding remarks from your half.
Pakistan is not the key player. We are still the key players. But by not engaging, we are losing our space. That's what happens. When you stop engagement, and then the whole thing goes back to Operation All Out and to the military side. That's where Pakistan takes advantage. There was a time, as I've said in my book, and I think I mentioned today as well, that the Hurriyat, as you know, were a Pakistani creation. And yet, the Hurriyat engaged with Delhi. They came and talked to the Deputy Prime Minister here. And, at that point of time, we said that talks will be only within the Constitution of India. And one of those Hurriyat leaders said to me, if we are talking to the Deputy Prime Minister, obviously it's going to be within the Constitution. But why do you have to rub it in? So I don't agree that Pakistan is a key player. It is a player in Kashmir. It's always been a player. So I would acknowledge that, but it's not a key player. I think we understand Kashmir much better than they do. And I think we have a much bigger role in Kashmir than they have.
That's true. It's like an undisputed player, but still in the picture.
Yeah, it's in the picture. But we are the real players there. That is why I say we should play our part more astutely. We talk about hard power and soft power. Soft power has always worked well for India. But let me today advocate smart power.
For all our viewers who are watching it, it's a young audience just like us. If you have to give them a reading list, like 2-3 books that you would like them to read, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm reading a very strange book right now. It's strange and it's entertaining. It's called Dozakh Nama, written by a Bengali gentleman. You might know him, Mr. Chakraborty. His name is Ravi Shankar Bal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you must be knowing him.
Yeah.
So it's a novel by him. It's a conversation in hell between Ghalib and Manto, if you've heard of Manto.
Oh,
So I would recommend it to both of you. Read it. The
yes,
other thing
yes,
I've been
done,
reading,
done.
the other thing I've been reading, I read literature from time to time. So I was reading Keats again,
Okay.
the romantic,
The John Keats.
the youngest and the most romantic of the romantics, who died the earliest.
Yeah. So on that note, sir, we would like to end it. Though we would love to have a discussion for hours, but still, I think you have to leave urgently for something.
Next time we'll talk Shakespeare, maybe.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Oh, sir, sure.
Sure, sir.
Definitely,
Thank you.
definitely.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much. It
much.
was such a great privilege and honor to speak to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Well, I enjoyed myself thoroughly.